The Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast is dedicated to all things Horus Heresy. This podcast delves into the grimdark universe where Primarchs clash, legions rise, and loyalties fracture faster than a Land Raider's track. But it's not just about the lore of the Horus Heresy. The Accountabilibuddies also explore the gaming side of things, from painting and modeling tips to product reviews and ideas to help you in your hobby. So, whether you're a seasoned Forge World veteran or a fresh-faced scout, this podcast is your Vox channel to the galaxy. Expect discussions on lore, modeling, gaming, and maybe even the shenanigans that your hosts somehow seem to find their way into. Remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there are only two things you can count on: Heresy and your trusty Accountabilibuddies.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Horus Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast. This is episode 82, and you are joined by myself, Brian, and
Dan.
Duncan.
Jack.
Jamie.
And John.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 82. We got the intro right twice because we had one screw up with recording before, but
Did we so? Did we get it right?
Oh no, I admit it all. Yeah, we got it right before, Jack. It's just everything didn't quite work out. Hopefully it'll work out towards the end too. We will see. Before we have to get into the meat and potatoes of tonight's episode, I think it's time for a word from our sponsors.
Do you love resin bases? Then go to our sponsor, Elric Hobbies, for all of your basing and basing accessory needs. Use code HERESYABB at checkout for a discount. Legendary Monument Hobbies. Monument Hobbies is a one-stop shop for all of your painting needs. Use code HERESYABB at checkout for a 5% discount on your purchase. Pop Goes the Monkey. Find maker of third-party accessory bits of arms, legs, backpacks, and more, where you can get 10% off your first order over $125 with code HERESYABB at checkout.
And now that we're back, thank you to everybody also who's a patron. We really appreciate all that you've put into us, and we're working to get more stuff for you. As is tradition, hobby progress, gentlemen. John, what have you done?
Yeah, so sadly this week I missed our hobby hump day. I had a really weird headache that was coming on, probably with all the storms that's coming through Texas. Either way, I did manage to get some work done on my Skitarii Arc rifle troopers. I got all those guys assembled. And today, while we're doing the cast, I'm working on the Skitarii with radium rifles. So, moving forward with that stuff. I also got an order I'd placed a long time ago from Tortuga Modeling out of Ukraine, and got all that stuff come in and sorted it out. Just some extra heads and some bodies and stuff like that for some conversions I plan later with some of my Terminators, some of the Saturnine Terminator kits that they have. And then placed a decent little order with Elric's Hobbies, using our discount code to get some stuff for the Sentinel Guard that I'm building. And then someone was nice enough to post that in the Eye Horus chat to see what those guys look like, and they're tiny. those little models. The official model is smaller than a Charonite Ogren. And if anyone knows, Charonite Ogrens, I mean, they're beefy. They're not small models, but still, for what GW wants for those little plastic Sentinels, that's a little high for how small they are. But yeah, that's pretty much everything I've gotten done this week. How about Dan? What about you?
So, not a ton, but I actually today started into heresy modeling again. I just haven't been feeling Space Marines. I think it's part of the reason I haven't been doing much. So, since I have a bunch of models to make a night list sitting on the shelf, I decided to jump in and started building some armatures. So, I've got I don't know, a bunch of plastic knights, a lancer, and a bunch of armatures. We'll obviously magnetize the crap out of all of them by the time it's all done, so I may need to buy more magnets. But my goal with them, so I had originally, my thought was that they were going to be like ancient Terran fighting forces. So I have one that's a Spartan. Next one was going to be green and was going to be like a Wildcat Jaguar kind of thing. So I think I'm just going to continue that theme, and they're all going to be like college football team themed, like each knight and armature will be like a different color and symbol of like a college football team. It's my own night house. They're up in the 500 Worlds, which up by where Badab is. I've probably talked about that before a little bit, maybe. But yeah, so it'll be a fun project because I'll come up with a different color and symbol for each knight and armature as I go through and build them and you know um, put that together. So I been needing to get back into doing heresy stuff, so this gets me back on the track doing something heresy wise. So next we'll go to Duncan, I guess.
Oh, this week I haven't done a whole lot. I started coming through bits and piles of stuff to try to locate shoulder pads and backpacks, because I realized that since I do assemblies for all my guys separately, that I didn't know where all my backpacks for the new Rampagers are, and I didn't know where all the shoulder pads for them are. And in rummaging through everything through my multiple boxes of piles of shame, I found all the backpacks I needed. So I've got 70 backpacks now. I've got those all but the last 20 of them put on, cleaned up, and glued their back to a sprue so that I can sit there and paint them all as one batch as a whole. And then I have found 90 of the shoulder pads that I need. I need 180 total, but I found 90 of them. I've been cleaning those up to get those ready to stick on sprue holders so they also can be ready to batch paint when I get to them. Other than that, I've been dealing with this broken tooth issue and the dental issue from there. And then a game I pre-ordered 4.5 years ago called Homeworld 3 has finally come out. I've been waiting for this game for literally 20 years. So it came out, and I've spent a lot of my time playing that and have been very much enjoying it. So
yeah,
that's
mine
been,
came in. Mine came in too. Did you get the super huge mothership edition?
yes.
I like how it makes noise. It's fun.
I'm gonna not comment, but I'm very happy with it. But since it's not heresy related, I'll leave it alone. Jamie, what have you done this week, sir?
Finished organizing my office finally. I've got a bunch of. I ran out of a lot of crucial airbrush supplies, so I had to restock on varnishes, cleaner, and thinner. And that's about it because I have had soccer practice with the kid. One of the kids is trying out for club soccer, so he's had workups this whole past week, and then today I changed. I did a full brake job on my truck, so I haven't been a little busy. So
what do you use for airbrush cleaner?
I just got the generic Vallejo. I got bulk generic Vallejo cleaner, and then I also cleaner. What did I get? No, I got the it's like a hold on a second. It is the Master Airbrush cleaner. It's just the big old.
Oh, okay.
But I've got Vallejo.
Okay. I have. When I first started, I got into I have a squirt bottle, from high school chemistry lab with 20% isopropyl, 80% DI water, and that's so. The only time I ever ran into any sort of problems with cleaner was during the early days of COVID when I had to hoard some isopropyl. But other than that, I'm able to get cleaner all the time. Every now and again, I have some cleaners I've been given that if I do a deep clean, maybe I go in and use those. But for my day-to-day washout clean, I just use that isopropyl DI mix.
For cleaner, I'm not picky at all. I just use what I gotta, whatever I can get in bulk. The thinner though, and like flow improver, it will depend on the paint that I'm using. So
I get so much dry brush. I rarely am using thinner, so I'm usually either mixing with.
Well, here it depends
Flow
on the season.
improver. Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
so like right now, like literally on this past Monday night, we got 6 inches of rain. So, right now I'll be actually using. I wouldn't use any thinner to cause it to dry out because it's so humid. But like when we get into like August and September, it'll be super dry to the point where I'll need something to help improve the flow because I'll get like dry tip on the airbrushes.
Yeah,
So,
I use flow improver almost all the time. I fight dry tip inside in my basement constantly, so I'm always using flow improver. I have thinners around, but I don't tend to use them.
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on the paint too and what the effect I'm trying to get. So
I will say the one thing is don't ever use the thinner from Vallejo on the Scale 75 metallics because it's alcohol based and the alcohol interacts wonky and it actually
Yep, same with Tamiya.
Yeah, Scale 75 changed their formulation to the point where it's kind of like GW airbrush paints now, where you kind of have to use their thinner, or you have problems with it. I ran into it basically the way they changed the top of the bottles, and that's how you can tell which one's which. But talking with some of my painter friends and stuff, they found out the hard way as well, like same as I did. And I started having a bunch of airbrush problems and couldn't figure out what was going on. And it was basically because the thinner I was using with the Scale 75 paint was causing it to gum up. That's the best way to describe it. And it would gum up very quickly, and like parts of it would precipitate too in the paint from the medium. So I basically have stopped using Scale 75 paint. So I've pretty much right now I'm just using GW and Monument, mainly Monument at this point.
Yeah, that's me. If the company makes it difficult, I'm sorry. I like your stuff, but
right. No, I mean I really did like Scale 75 paints. They had really high pigment quality, and they the metallics were really good too. But as you said, when you make it difficult for me to use your product, I'm not going to use it anymore. Especially when you don't tell anybody that you did it and you have to find out the hard way.
Exactly. That's burning a bridge to me.
Yep. Whereas like with the Monument stuff, I'm not saying that they're not one of our sponsors, but like I've had like really good luck with them, and like if I have any problems, I can contact them and they respond instantly, or I know people there that work there that will respond back to any of my questions and get back to me very quickly. And they've been good with everybody else that's had questions too.
Yeah.
So
I still if I'm gonna spray metallics, the best is the Vallejo metal color or whatever.
Yeah. The only problem with those is they kind of have like an expiration date on them because they have like a medium in with them, and you have to be very careful when you're painting that it hadn't been sitting for too long. I don't know, was it John? You've had issues with that? They're great paints. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. They're
I bought
great
a boatload of magnesium because I was doing all my metal night undercoats in magnesium. And that first few days when I sprayed through like 2 bottles, it was great. And then I came back and had half a bottle like 7-8 months later. It wasn't as crisp as it was before. And the next bottle was kind of crappy. So
it does kind of weird stuff. It kind of like separates is the best way to describe it. It doesn't like, even when you shake it like crazy, it'll like if it's been sitting for too long, like the medium that gives it the fluidity, it kind of like separates from the metallic pigment, and you get like the best way to describe it is like T1000 effects with the paint. Like with it kind of separates the pigment into like globs and drops on top of lighter color pigment. It's like oil and water. If you take oil and water and shake it up, it'll separate. Eventually, you'll see like salad dressing. It'll separate in the container. It kind of does that.
I've also had the pigment in it goober up, and when you try to run it through an airbrush, it just is a mass casualty event for your airbrush. It is not a good time.
Yeah, if you cause me to have to do like a hardcore breakdown and clean on my airbrush because you've been monkeying around with your paint formulas, I don't like. Usually, will go back to you. That's what I'm going to say. So, I've had good. I know everybody knocks on them. I've had good luck with the GW stuff, and because I know which thinner to use with them, and then like the monument stuff, like for the most part, unless I'm working on something very specific, I can actually run the monument stuff through my airbrush not thinned. But if I need to, I can thin it down. So
yeah, I'm trying to use all my other paints up before I jump in and start converting to monument because I have way too much money worth of paints to buy everything.
Well, I understand. Like, have you seen how many GW paints I have? Like, that's why I haven't like just gone. Like one of our friends of the show, Brian, like went in hardcore for monument, and literally he has the entire line. And anytime they release stuff, he buys it all. I mean, he's got the whole line, and he uses it very well. But there's also other paints that he uses. But like, yeah, I just can't. I'm not hopping paints like willy nilly when I've got so much tied up as it is. You know.
I threw my back out trying to organize paints week 4 last. So
yeah,
I know what giant mounds of money in paint looks like.
Sorry, I've monopolized all the hobby chat. I didn't mean to because I really didn't do anything this week. It's just kind of been like I'm in an organizational phase and trying to get everything ready for like the summer when I actually have free time to actually just paint, you know?
Yeah.
So I know
my fault because I jumped in and started talking about it, but
it's cool, Dan. It's cool.
We've talked about it before. It's the yak shaving, the things you've got to get done to do the thing you want to do.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, you know, after this coming week, I'm free and clear of soccer till like probably at least August. So, you know, I've got stuff already lined. Huh?
Now you jinxed yourself. You said you were free next week, so now something's going to come up.
Well, he's got tryouts this week. If he actually makes the club team, that will be different. But I'm hoping I'm semi-hoping he doesn't. We want him to try out just because I think it's a good experience for him. But it's going to be really hard for him to. Huh?
Does he listen?
He does.
He doesn't.
No, he doesn't listen to me. He listens to other people.
No, to the podcast. What do you mean?
No, he doesn't
want me to make?
No. But yeah, I mean, I've got stuff lined up. I've already got a lot of kits primed and ready to go that I've kind of been staggering, and I've got stuff already taped up for base layer and layering coats. Sorry. And yeah, it's just kind of getting my ducks in a row to go full tilt. So I'm sorry. I don't even know who's gone at this point. So was it
Jack?
It's just me now.
Okay, well, have at it, Brian.
Well, maybe Jack too. My hobby progress has been building 10 game tables for the store I work at. They got the new space finally. So, yeah, doing pretty well on that. They're almost ready to be stained and sealed. And that's about the extent of what I've done. Like Jamie, I've got a few things on the bench that are primed and ready for continuing work. I just haven't had the time. What about you, Jack?
Also, as we're recording, I'm shopping for Battle Foam too. That counts for
hobby. I started work on painting the sides of a Mastodon, and after that was on the Hobby Hangout, and then I realized on the Hobby Hangout after I was done painting them that I was supposed to record that, and I was like, "Dope." So yeah, that's about all I've done. So I think is that everybody?
Yep.
I believe so.
Outstanding. So the news. What is new in the news?
Well, I hate to tell everybody, but like we've said before, it's been kind of boring. So official GW-wise, this week, new releases, nothing really Heresy. Pre-orders, nothing really Heresy. What we did get, though, was the GW merch store dropped the Tartarus Terminators and Tartarus Sons of Horus Terminators and Sons of Horus Praetor in the Joy Toy 1/18th G.I. Joe scale figures. And so those will be coming out, I think, late July at this point. And then Merchoid dropped a couple things. They restocked their ties. So these are Warhammer ties. I got the Imperial one, or my wife got me the Imperial one a while ago. It's just a nice blue tie with some really faint Aquilas on it, and then an Aquila tie tack. They've got that one. They've got an Orc one that's bright green. Not exactly a good color for a tie, in my opinion, but if you want it. And with an Orc tie tack, and then there's a Chaos one, which is kind of a nice dark red with some really faint Chaos stars in it. The other thing that they have is they're starting to produce what they call desk flags, and these are actually kind of heresy themed. The first one, anyway, is an Ultramarines desk flag that is, I didn't really say a scale on it, but it's $32, and it's just a little metal flag that stands up on your desk, and so that way, if you've got a work desk or someplace that you want to kind of put that out, you can just kind of set it out there. If it was cloth for $32, I might get it, but being pure metal and just with painted on folds looks kind of boring to me, so I'm going to pass on that one. And that's really been it as far as GW stuff is concerned.
Yeah, like not really a whole lot of pre-orders from like just in general. I mean, like there's a couple Lord of the Rings coming out for next week, and that was really it. So
yeah, apparently a scuttlebutt on one of the Black Library Facebook pages was that Amazon has the release for the End of the Death Volume 3 paperback being like August.
it means Barnes and Noble will end up having it like now, but
probably so. I actually saw the release for the End of the Death 3 on Amazon in paperback. I saw a date on it like a week ago. Like after we recorded last week, I was looking at stuff.
Okay.
However, in my scouring of Amazon, I have not managed to locate any the Scouring series or anything like that. And I checked the usual suspect authors for upcoming releases and couldn't find anything that seems to have been announced through GW through Amazon secretly yet. So keep looking, folks. We'll find it eventually if it's going to be done.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like they're trying to want to take a break and let some of their other projects cook right now. They've got the supposed Amazon series that's being worked on and some of the other stuff that's coming out. I wonder if they're just trying to take stock of things and make sure everything comes out correctly. But let me put this way. I hope that they're trying to work on things and make sure everything comes out correctly before they try to jump into another project.
Well, my big concern about it was if they don't have novels, they're really not going to get that much of the actual general public who have been picking up the novels for so long now. I mean, consistently, the Heresy novels hit the New York Times bestseller list on a constant, every single release basis.
Well,
and
the
if they're
downside
not
is though
dropping something, they're not getting that hit, so they're not getting that much extra eye attention.
Yeah, but you and I know a very famous author who's never been on that, and he sells more than a lot of those. That list isn't always numerically driven.
You're absolutely right, but the one guy who I figured they would probably use to lead off for it, Dan Abnett would be my guess. I have looked him, try to see if there's anything coming up from him, and I haven't seen anything. And I wasn't looking just for Heresy. I was also looking to see if there's the next book in the Elspeth Banquin series, if there's another one of the Gaunt's Ghost series, because I follow both those series as well. And I just haven't seen anything. And
yeah, 40K in general too is also going through an odd time with 10th coming out and everything else. So yeah, I don't know. It's odd.
It's really weird because it's their fourth quarter, right? Because they're on a 6
yeah, they report over the summer. It's like June, July.
You'd think they'd have some sort of big fourth quarter release of some sort, and it certainly is not.
Well,
usually we're getting a box or something right now.
Yeah, now it could well be that with their shipping problems they've had and all the production problems they've had, that they've decided to forego it and use those sales and numbers to boost their first quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, and if so, more power to them. I mean, if they decide it's going to work.
Then they closed the warehouse too, like for 4 or 5 days. So like there could be like something where they're just trying to get reorganized, like inventory wise.
Yeah, who knows what they're trying to do.
I thought that was funny that happened right when the cases of Forge World started showing up on Fleabase.
Yeah.
That was almost like they were trying to inventory and figure out who's walking out the door with crap. That looked like someone got a truck, but it could have been that they just were losing inventory straight out of the warehouse too.
Every day, Johnny takes home a box at lunch.
Yeah, there's really no way of knowing what that was from.
That's good that you said Johnny, because all I can think of is the Johnny Cash song about the Cadillac.
One piece at a time.
Yep. But yeah, there was a bunch of that crap that showed up, and then I think
like
a lot
78
of it was
Magnus to Reds.
Yeah, and then it made it to someone who's piecing it out. So now someone's got 78 individual ones instead of a big case.
Yep, I mean, more power to them. If they're going to sell them, hope they make money off of it. And I hope they figured out what happened.
So that brings us into probably the worst news. The price increase.
Let's hit that after another positive bit.
Okay.
Because we do have the preview event that they have going on next weekend.
Okay. Are we planning something for that, Duncan?
I don't know. I think that one of our hosts, who might be named John, had mentioned maybe doing a watch party and getting it organized somehow.
What is the preview event, and what is it supposed to be about? For those of us that don't know.
Yeah, every now and then GW does these little preview events. Usually they do them for Adepticon or Nova Open, or kind of wherever these things come out. What they're doing for next weekend, May the 19th, is they're going to be doing a Warhammer preview. And during that preview, they're going to go through all the different types of game systems that they're making. They've got Necromunda, they've got Age of Sigmar, they've got Old World. There's a couple other things on there. Obviously, the most important thing to us is the Heresy event. And they really don't tell you the exact time that specifically Heresy is going to happen or when these other things are going to happen. They just kind of give you a time frame of when they're going to be revealing stuff. And you just kind of get on, walk through. There's a couple of host guys that talk through everything. And then eventually they kind of reveal what's going on. And so we thought it'd be kind of cool if all of our trusty hobbyers joined us in the usual kind of hobby hangout, and we just go through and watch the event as it comes up and talk about all the new Heresy releases that come out.
I wouldn't object to doing that at all. I'd be
what
absolutely
kind of
happy to do it.
what kind of timing what time of day or night is this?
Try to find it.
Normally it's done in British time, so it's like 5 in the morning or some nonsense.
So it is Thursday, 16th of May. Oh, this is for the Mortal Realms. Sorry. The Saturday preview show is at 12:45 CDT. So, Mr. Google Machine, what is that to Central Standard Time? According to this, it's going to the same time. So it's going to be noon on Saturday?
Wait. CDT? Is it you said it was?
Yeah.
No, they've done it. They've had them before. Like it's usually 12 to 2, like Central Time in the United States. Before they've done it before.
CDT is Central Daylight Time. So
yeah.
Huh. So they're not going to do it in British Standard Time? That's strange.
Although they've got two different times listed. So the one that Duncan is probably thinking of is the other one for Age of Sigmar is going to be on Thursday, May 16th at 7 Central and 1 a.m. British.
Wow. That's different.
And then the other preview, which is going to be 40K, Horus Heresy, Limp, and Necromunda, is Saturday, 12:45 CDT and 6:45 p.m. British time.
All right.
And then apparently there's some. Yeah, so I guess this one's more for us. I'm not fighting it.
No, I'm just wondering how much of the Mechanicum stuff in plastic they're going to be revealing to us.
Yeah, I'm going to have to be careful with that because that's the same day there's a big gun show in the area, and so I'll have to come home for that.
Mm. Well, I'm sure that we can probably organize something.
I will be here. So yeah,
I'm not surprised.
Everyone is more than welcome to join us in our hobby hangout as we go through and see what things GW wants us to waste our money on in the future.
I'll be curious to see what they do for Legions Imperialis.
Yeah, because at this point, they've pretty much released everything that they have rules for. So this is actually going to be new stuff.
Well, I think they have some re-releases they need to do of Titans. Maybe some of the night kits that were unique to Forge World previously. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The armigers would be nice in plastic because those are so stupidly expensive in resin, and any type of miscast completely screws those things up because they're so tiny.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll also give us a moment and announce some new books. Who knows?
I would really like the release date for that Blasted Command Squad.
Yeah, so I'd like that too. I'd also like to see some, I'm just going to stop because I like to see a release date for so many things. And I can't even list how many things I want to see them put out. But the thing I know they announced at Adepticon being the plastic being Mechanicum, maybe in plastic, is something that I'm really looking forward to seeing.
I'm still gonna tell you, I don't think it's AdMech, and I have several reasons for it.
Even though AdMech could be Mechanicum.
Well, it's not gonna be. I don't think it's Mechanicum. I think it's Mechanicum Knights. Here, I can give you my reasons for it. Okay.
Oh, please do, please do.
So, if you've noticed what they've been doing with Forge World, okay, they've been getting rid of like the kits that basically aren't characters or basically like a Titan. And sorry, if you remember, they've already released the larger frame Knights in plastic. So, two of those Knights that Forge World has, or is it two? Is it one? It's one of those Knights Forge World has. That was it, the Adipose or Atropos?
Yeah, there's the Atropos and there's the.
Well, the two other ones are on the smaller Knight frame, the Styrex and the Mageria. So, and then you have so they're trying to get rid of everything from Forge World because Forge World basically doesn't exist anymore. So they would move that you could do an Atropos with basically one sprue difference from the normal like Castigator or Lancer. And the same thing with the Styrex and the Mageria, you could do that with the different weapon sprue and top armor sprue. And then you have the whatever the little guy is, they have one of those for the AdMech, and then they have the two big boys, but the big boys, I don't know if they would actually move those over. But it was
like
just the
Moirax, the little guys, or the Armiger size ones.
Yeah, the Armiger size one.
Yeah, those are already hybrid kits, so they come with plastic.
Right, but I'm saying they could get they're trying to simplify their lineup and have as little actually in resin as possible. So instead of doing a whole new army from scratch, which is what they would have to do with AdMech, which that would be more of a first quarter release than a end of the year type release. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And the other thing is they've already released a new army for 30K this year, which would be the Solar Ox. I just don't see them putting out two new armies in the same like fiscal year. Whereas with this, it's a low hanging fruit. They could really put these out with only maybe doing like a transfer sheet and one different sprue per each kit, and then they've phased all that stuff out of having to carry it in Forge World or like resin.
I hear what you're saying.
To support his thoughts, the new the Castigator Lancer sprue is designed so that the skeleton is one sprue with no armor plates at all. And then the other sprues are armor plates and other things. So it's designed specifically for that. And we know that with 10th edition coming out, that there's a possibility when Forge World, when they moved on to 8th edition, they had all the plans to move over all the 30K stuff into 40K. So it wouldn't be that hard for them to do that still with a re-release of mech stuff later, and maybe throw out a couple units to 30 to 40K as well to see if they sell better.
Now, I'm gonna say this. Yes, I understand where all of us are coming from on this. That said, we have to remember that if this stuff is going to come out after the end of this month, roughly, it won't be the same fiscal year as the Solar Ox, because the Solar Ox will have been the fiscal year that just ended. And if they're going to be trying to do this to push into the full Mechanicum line or something close to a full Mechanicum line, it would give a lot of impetus to be Heresy Forward sales for the beginning of their year. And if they see strong sales there, again, pushing more towards more Heresy support. That would be my reasoning for thinking it might occur. Now,
can I throw something else out?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there was a leaked list prior to Adepticon of everything that they would show. And everything that was on that leaked list was at Adepticon with one exception.
Which was?
AdMech Knights.
Okay, that's fair. Again, I'm just saying it may be, you could very well be 177% correct. And I could be pissing into the wind, as it were.
I'm not saying that. Look, we all would love
oh no,
the
we all
Mechanicum
would.
getting their own knights. I mean, not their own knights, their own army. I mean, we all agree that it's something that would help the hobby a lot, because that right now is a very, very, very difficult and expensive army to build out.
Correct.
It's all resin. I mean, off the top of my head, I literally don't think there are anything in it plastic.
I don't think there is anything. But no,
I mean, you can't even use the Scutari for it. Those are special for the ground
Titan
troops
Zone.
for Titan Legion.
Yeah,
Yep.
Again, you're right. I'm just saying why I think it's possible, and why I hope that it could be a thing. And it could well be they could well use the AdMech Knights to start it off, and then push out the rest of it later the year, or even the beginning of next year. I don't know. If there's one thing I've proven time and again, it's that I cannot predict what GW will do.
See, I'm just gonna go with the GW low hanging fruit. That's why I really.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
And I'm not saying they won't do Mechanicum. I think they actually will. I think it's just going to be after Christmas is what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be kind of like Solar Ox was. They have a reason. Go ahead.
I was going to say, before we came on, we were talking that, the latest Primaris lieutenants are characters for Sons of Horus and Imperial Fist, so it could just be they have new characters for both of those legions coming out, like jump pack characters or something.
Yeah,
okay, I got one better. This is my hot take.
All right, your way.
You guys ready for this? It's going to be very controversial. I'm not sure the internet can handle this. Plastic breachers.
That would be lovely.
We would all love to see
as
that.
would plastic destroyers. But this was something they this was a teaser they specifically put out at Adepticon that it was something Mars related. So
yeah, of course
they make them on Mars.
The other possibility could be that it could be a Heresy Tech Marine.
True.
A Heresy
Or
Tech Marine.
If you want to really
if
you want to tie fists into the war, since they're doing all this Beta Garment and all these other little minor things, do the Mars schism where they went to Mars and fought to get the Mark 6 armors.
That is a campaign would be really cool.
Yep.
And it would appeal to the people who do not just play power armor.
I mean, Duncan has a good point, though. I mean, that we've got the apothecary models, and Tech Marines are the same, purchase style. And right now you have to convert one or get one of the old resin ones, right? There isn't a current model.
How pissed would people be though, thinking that they're going to get AdMech and it ends up being just a Tech Marine?
Well,
that's quality. That's a quality.
I mean, no offense with the way GW is rolling right now, I could easily see them doing that. So
I would laugh.
I'm
I really
would.
How many times did we think we were getting some cool Heresy thing, and all that came out was Lord of the Ring models, right?
Or another Sons of Horus random nonsense thing.
Primaris Lieutenants.
Yeah.
So.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, there's so many different things that it could be, but I think
a new Decurion.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Classic Malkador.
Yeah.
And I don't mean a tank. I just mean like Malkador himself.
But the tanks would be cool too, as would these other Marine super heavies. But
yeah,
Headless Ferris.
Yeah. No. We already know where Harris's we know where Harris's head is. It's over there on the
belt of
on the belt of Horus. Yeah. But no,
they could come out of nowhere and just do like a dynamic Rogel Dorn resculpt, right?
Yeah.
Now
it fits the Sons of Horus Imperial Fist theme with second edition.
I mean, I don't think that Dorn really needs a new sculpt. He's already got 2 models. I don't think he needs a third right now, but that's just my opinion.
What do you think the second model is, Duncan?
The Centurion model. You knew I was gonna have to throw that in there somehow.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say the G.I. Joe scale one, because that one's at least posable, and it came out before Horus did.
No, I was meaning the one that from If the Emperor had a text-to-speech device, Centurion. Because hey, haven't talked about that for a long time. Well, I think that's all our news and all our hobbying stuff. So, Brian, you had a couple topics you wanted to bring up tonight, sir. Have at it, brother.
Why don't we get on the subject of making a better battlefield for your games of 30K? Something that I see a lot of in events here locally and at Adepticon, and from pictures I see posted by our fabulous listeners. A lot of the battlefields are rather two-dimensional. They don't utilize height.
What do you mean by that?
Verticality. Like
verticality.
Taller buildings and like structures and stuff.
Buildings that actually have functioning levels to them. I don't see much in the way of hills anymore. Of course, in my opinion, everybody does buildings wrong. If you look at pictures from World War II in particular, with all the massive bombing campaigns in Europe, when you see those buildings, frequently around them and the inside the building itself is built up from all the rubble that is accrued from the ceiling, the roof, all of that collapsing down, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of buildings in City Fight is just weird to me, in that there should be effectively a hill inside that building and there wouldn't be a first floor.
Do you know how hard it is to train servitors to sweep rubble?
I mean, next you're gonna suggest that people not use just the standard pre-cut stuff that GW's been pushing out for 10th and 11th edition.
That would be heresy.
So I would argue for gameplay that some rubble inside buildings is good thing and make it difficult terrain or something like that. I think to your point where, if it's a really ruined building, I guess maybe a rubble makes sense a little bit, but I think you're going to get into a lot of situations that are just going to be slowing down games and harder to deal with, models balancing funny. I think to a point that disregarding some of that a little bit of that reality is just to make games play better.
I disagree, because if you build it out so that you get that 1.5 inches of height and then add some features to it that make it visually appealing, give you that aesthetic, you don't encounter weird wonkiness where it's just a massive bundle of gravel and rock, especially if you look at that imagery, and a lot of it is already kind of pancaked, just with features to it where it looks like rubble, but it's relatively flat. So I think there's a lot of options there that we could integrate better into our gameplay, and then you have your other stuff too, like gantries, various other things.
Well, I mean,
Even
as far as
buildings.
as far as levels go, I mean, I have one of my tables is my Prometheum plant or industrial setup that is a bunch of old Necromunda stuff, and old mix of old and new Necromunda. So it has everything has layers. I have some ramps, whatever you call them, that go between buildings that I can put on there depending on how I set it up. And so I agree. And one of my tables has the levels built into it, where it has realistically, a number of buildings with second levels and a few buildings with third levels, and ladders built in to go up and down and take advantage of that sort of stuff. So the level thing, I definitely am for that.
Brian really wants Vin Diesel shot.
Well, I'm gonna actually go off on a little bit there. I get where you're coming from, Brian, and I'd like to see more variety in that as well. But I think one thing that people have to pay attention to if they are building like an actual building with levels in it is that yes, there's a bombed out center of it, but don't just fill that center of the actual terrain piece with, a pile of rubble, because then your people playing on it are going to have a nightmare getting their guys to stand on the actual rubble.
You have a lot of
Because you'll
trouble
have-
with getting them in out stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
some of us
if there's
have
one
real
thing
fat hands.
That's what I was trying to say, and I think you said it much more succinctly, Duncan.
Okay, because there's one thing that I remember from up at Ryan Kimmel's place up in Indiana. One of his terrain pieces has a big bombed out center, and it was a nightmare for me to get my guys to be able to stand on that terrain piece because they kept falling over no matter what.
And I'm saying you can design around that, right?
Yeah, you can, and I see where you're coming from, and I think that doing that is a good idea, especially to make your table look unique and to give it its own flavor.
Well, it's not even just making it unique. Another thing I see a lot with City Fight is, okay, my guys have line of sight through these three buildings because there's windows in each of them, and there's nothing to inhibit that line of sight. That's a commonly encountered issue a friend of mine and I have had playing games at our local game store, because all the buildings that are the newer style of GW building have ginormous windows. And so after we made a rule in our games that we assume those windows are all obstructed, you can see into the building but not through it, it vastly changed how the games were played.
Yeah, but I
would
say, go ahead.
I was going to say, I do miss the whole, like, if it's further than X inches, you can't see through it.
Yeah. I remember those days back in 5th edition.
But I think if you go back to the novels, remember that you don't have to see where someone is to shoot bolt guns and missile launchers at them, even, right? You've got scanners, and they always talk about heat signatures, and 2 buildings over coming down the road, there's another unit coming, and there's examples, and I think Betrayer is one, and a couple of the other where they get into city fight situations, where there's one where the dreadnought drop pod drops into a building, and they come in and they just start shooting and collapse the building on it. They don't even know exactly where the dreadnought is, right? So there's a lot of story that fits what you're talking about, that you don't like how the game plays, though. So I mean, I'm just because
I'm not saying I dislike the game playing like that. I found it makes for a more enjoyable game. Does that make sense?
It does. I think one thing that the game really needs is a bit more concrete rules regarding actual terrain. What John touched on, the whole back in 5th edition, where if the terrain piece itself was more than 3 inches in length, you could not see through it to shoot through it. You could shoot into it, you could shoot out of it, but if your squad of tactical marines on one side of it and another tactical squad on the other side of it could not shoot one another because there was too much stuff in the way. And I actually liked that because that actually made sense of, yes, it's a building and it's a wreck and it's a giant pile of debris, but it's also, you can't really see very well through it because of how wrecked it is. Those windows may have pieces of rebar from the levels above it that have fallen down on top of it. So I don't know. I think
That
that
is
some help there could actually go do well.
Yeah, and
that is in effect what we were representing with that, and it made for some interesting choices.
Yeah, and also I guess you could do it the other way and say that you're playing ZM and claim that you're.
Yeah.
So, for instance, I was going to build the ZM forest board, where instead of building walls, I was going to build bits of tree stands. And that way you could do the same thing. You could say, like, all right, we're playing ZM now. We're going to count these things as you can't see through them, you can't shoot through them, and you have to have smaller squads. Maybe we're going in, like Saving Private Ryan. We're only going to send in 30 guys into the city to go clear out this area. So
Normandy hedgerows.
Yep, exactly. We're going to play this as ZM. You can't shoot through the buildings. You could walk into the buildings. And that's another way that you could do a cool event game, too.
I mean, and that's another thing that we should talk about if we're doing that, is that not every game needs to be fought on a city map. I mean, how many different planets in the Heresy were not just cities? I mean, there are forests out there. There are deserts out there. There's mountain ranges.
When I brought those 9 tables to Adepticon, 4 of them were ash waste tables and pumping tables and junkyards, and just because it's not Heresy terrain doesn't mean you can't use it. I mean, we always talk about stealing stuff from fish stores and things like that, but I mean, you can do that with GW too. I mean, one of my tables is just built out of Age of Sigmar ruins. That real big stuff, and that stuff denies line of sight physically, but also imposes some of the verticality that Brian's talking about, because it's as thick as a rhino in places.
Yeah.
And so if you get up on top of that thing, you're going to have nice line of sight to everybody, but at the same time, everybody's got nice line of sight to you.
Yep.
Another thing.
Go ahead.
A style of board that I don't think I've ever seen done is in the great widespread universe that is Warhammer, you never really see tables made to represent the ginormous factories and warehouses.
I have pictures of a Hive City that my GW store built. They have
and that could be a compelling battlefield, and it could also be something that you could make even tighter, turn it into a Zone Mortalis board, or open it up further.
Well, I mean, this thing that they built, it was so big that, on the different levels of the Hive, you had avenues that you could drive, Baneblade-sized tanks through.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I know John's seen pictures of it, and every once in a while, when it comes up on my Facebook page, I put the video up of it. I mean, they had it where they had smoke generators in it that would billow out smoke during the games, and then out in front of it, they actually had a broken Hive City wall that had been broken through. So it was,
that was
very vertical.
Idea. That was kind of the original idea of why we were getting all those tanks for me last at Adepticon in 23 was for
highway.
I have a 2-foot by 2-foot tank factory, and I've got bays built, but I don't have any tanks in them. And so the original idea was to get 4 or 5 tanks that we could sit in the thing. And we ended up getting 10 of them, and I built an army out of it. But I'm trying to get some scrap vehicles from friends that are printing stuff so that I can put it in the tank factory. But and then I forget who it was. One of the MDF companies makes a Russian tank factory that's 3 foot by 2 foot.
Sarissa?
Yeah. They one of the locals had that, and they said they were missing a couple pieces and had the thing on for like 80% off. So I've got that on my to-do shelf.
I dig that. I mean, that's one of the things that I think it doesn't get enough play, is that there's a lot more than one type of battlefield or even one type of terrain.
And if you wanted to be crazy, you can do 2 games at once. You could do the one game where the people infiltrate the tank factory, and then you could have the other game where people are fighting outside. And if you don't have that naturally, you're going to end up getting it organically through people playing the game anyway, because some units just ain't going to fit in there, and so they're going to have to fight on the outside.
Mm-hmm. And that's something you can do to basically build a narrative across multiple tables that way.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
A very interesting thing that I saw released by, I believe, Morshin. They developed accessory pieces to add fighter launch bays to his own Mortalis tile board.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now that could be a very, very fun and interesting feature to a board that you don't see. In fact, a lot of Zone Mortalis boards are kind of lacking for scatter terrain and features that would make sense, right?
Yep.
Brian. That's what I'm building on mine. I'm printing those pieces out. Well, it's like basically it's not the whole terrain. It's like the stuff that would hold like a Avenger or like hold a GW. It's like a drop pod launching bay is another one of them that they had.
I might have to talk to you after the show.
I think we were talking about in the other chat too, where I was talking about getting one of those bigger Saturn V rockets to use as like a warp missile or something, when you could have it going down the corridor of a ZM.
Yep.
And that way you would have to, like the old Halo map where you had to watch out for the train or you get splatted.
Yep.
And so that would kind of give...
Well, there's a in the Kentucky 30K group, a guy named who runs it is named Keith, and he did a non-traditional silo. He actually built up a silo, printed it from I'm not even certain what, and then was using that as basically a destroyer missile that you could fire at another table.
Joe.
It was really cool.
There's one of the novels, and I forget which one it is, but they talk about dropping this giant drop pod that has like jet bikes flying out of it and tanks and multiple units of dudes, and it's like the size that it would take up half a table or something like that. And I always thought it'd be cool to model up and print a version of that would be a table you could play in and out of. And I think it's one of the short stories, but I forget what it's called, but it's like, it's not a Colossus drop pod, but there's a
couple like that. So there's the part that detaches from the Lion's ship that's got all the AI crap in it. And then there's Perturabo's got one that comes down with him every time he goes to a planet that's got like his maze thing built into it.
Yep.
And I've actually been, so this is a little peek behind the scenes, I've been buying up large, before they go up in price, G.I. Joe and Star Wars ships, so that you can basically do that. If anyone remembers the old How to Make War Games terrain, on the cover of that book was this really cool piece of broken up scenery. And it was kind of a bait and switch, honestly. It was like, oh, how are you going to make this really cool piece of terrain? And you open it up and it's like, take foam and rip it this way to make a tree. Or the old styrofoam containers, if you paint them up, they look like a broken building. I'm like, where is this cool crashed ship? And finally, someone that collected Star Wars toys went, oh, that's a Rebel transport. I was, are you kidding me? I bought this stupid book to find out how to... They just took a giant cool toy and crashed into some styrofoam mountains. And so what I've been trying to do is pick up cheap G.I. Joe and Star Wars ships that you can kind of break up or do stuff with. Disneyland had a ride where you kind of sit in a cart and the cart goes into this thing and you take on a VR tour. That toy has been coming up broken a lot on eBay, so I've been buying a couple of those to kind of crash, and they look like escape pods that are like 3 drop pods wide. And so they look really cool. Yeah. And then there's the old Disney ride was like you sat in this star bus thing. I got one that's only about 6 inches long, and they came out with a deluxe one that was 20 inches long. Those would make the 20-inch one would make a really cool like centerpiece for a table. Like this ancient thing crashed, we don't know what's in it.
Very good ideas. An idea that I had recently was, if you remember the Cold War, I know some of our listeners probably were not alive then.
Yeah.
The various munitions storage facilities that the Russians and the U.S. and other nationalities developed to store nuclear weapons or even just your regular run-of-the-mill anti-air missiles, aircraft munitions. There's some very, very neat potential for that kind of terrain, and it can be very tastefully done with very little effort just by creating a concrete wall and a hill behind it.
Yeah, they're
with
like
a solid steel door.
Yeah, basically, like you just have like a hill mound, okay, that's kind of cylinder. It's not it's oblong, and then on one end of it you just have like
with a metal door.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
and you just have rows of those. They're like little hills.
Who was wasn't that weird World War II game that Monty was trying to get us all into a long time ago?
Dust.
Their terrain, Dust had some of those GI tents that are kind of like that, where it's just a bunch
they're
of
like they're kind of
prefab
small.
buildings.
Really, I just threw a bunch of them out. They're like about that long.
Why'd you throw them out?
4x4.
They're too small for GW stuff. They're like tiny.
No, they're not.
Well, I'll look through. I may still have some. I've saved all the tank traps that they have because those are actually pretty cool.
Hey,
Yeah,
I've been looking for some of those Quantum hoods.
I've got tons of that dust models too. If anybody wants any of that stuff, so
I might be.
I know there were a couple of the Dust, like really big tank walkers. I know Ryan had one of those. That was kind of neat looking, and I thought something like that could be cool for doing like a Mechanicum themed table of like.
I did one where we did an apocalypse. Yeah, we did an apocalypse game where there was some ancient artillery that you could take over and shell the main table, and the artillery was those 2 super heavy German artillery walkers.
Oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about then.
Yep.
Yeah, he did that for the class we took, right, Duncan? He
did
that.
Yep, he absolutely did.
Can't find it.
There's a lot of different sources
to look for.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, like right now, the other thing to look at is Walmart is running psychotic sales on the Star Wars Micro Galaxy stuff. So the Imperial troop transport is roughly the size of a Rhino. Yeah, and I was finding them for $4 a piece.
Yeah, they're clearing stuff out for the holiday toy rush.
Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on right now. If you just walk into your local Walmart or Target or whatever and just look for cheap toys, honestly, you can find a lot of stuff that you can steal parts from or build onto and work with.
Yeah, there's a lot of different sources that you can use for finding different themes for a table, and you don't always have to just go with one kind of table. I mean,
right.
Look at the Eldar terrain that's out there for various different things.
So, John,
there are multiple fights that go on in the actual novels that take
place. Are you still going to do the highway?
Worlds.
Oh yeah, no, the highway that's when I bought those Imperial transports. They're going to be broken cars on the highway.
Okay.
Very nice.
Yeah, that's gonna. I'm digging that. That's why we got you all those tanks.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that I got a lot of things for. That's the problem.
Yeah.
A really cool table that was featured in a White Dwarf, probably in the 300s range of the issues, was a giant mushroom planet fungal world that was just incredible. And I have not found anything that could cost effectively replicate that or do something to that degree, but that would be an amazing table to have.
Do you know where that was at? That was at I think that was at the GW Memphis Battle Bunker before they closed it for play. They had
Okay.
that. They had a giant Imperial tanks storage yard where it's just like Lehman Russes and Bane blades out in a yard, but they're covered over in tarps. And it was probably a double the triple length table. I mean, it was massive. But they also had that fungal mushroom thing that you're talking about there as well.
Yeah, that was an incredible piece, and I don't know if I still have that white dwarf down in the basement, but that was a very, very unique take on a table.
It sounds like it.
You can do a lot with that. You could probably do. They've got those little lizard, like if you're raising lizards, you can buy like hollow hot logs and things like that.
Yep.
And then just make a foam cap that goes on top of that. And I could teach you how to do that if you want to make that. Like either make it a paper mache, and then that way you could easily cast them, or just buy foam that's big enough and cut it to shape. The same thing with the old Ewok village and Robin Hood Men in Tights. That village.
Yeah.
Or no, it's just Robin Hood. That village. You can usually find those things broken at resale shops for nearly nothing.
It's absolutely hilarious to reuse that, though.
There's a lot of different things out there that'll do that. I think one thing that everyone needs to remember when building whatever into a new table that they've got concept-wise in their head is that no matter what, make certain it's still something that's playable.
Yep.
Because you can easily fill a table up with so much stuff that there's barely room for guys on 32 millimeter bases to run around on, let alone things on 60 mil, 80 mil, or tank size. I mean, just remember, sensible and memorable is gonna be a lot better than your perfect idea.
And it's not that bad to sketch out some things, like kind of half build it and then let people play games on it. I had that problem with some of the Adepticon terrain I built. I built this really cool ash wastes bar that led up into a Astropath Palace kind of thing. And it's this gorgeous piece of centerpiece, but the problem is you have to take the whole Astropath thing off if you want to be able to get into the bar. And if you want to get into the Astropath thing, you can't have the bar on it. So really what I was seeing at Adepticon is no one was using all of it. They were either using one floor or no floors and just leaving it in the middle of the table. So it's not that bad to sometimes kind of half build something or kind of sketch it out of foam or plastic art or whatever and just kind of build it up and then let somebody play test some games with it.
Yep. Absolutely makes sense to me.
Because I know I spent a long time on that bar and no one saw it until I took the top off it.
I mean,
and with that, I do need to get going because I got to get back to work. But by all means, continue the conversation without me.
Thank you for starting us off. I think it's a good conversation topic tonight.
But yeah, at the end of the day, create interesting battlefields, make them compelling, make them functional. That is a big part of it.
I think one thing that always goes into making a good battlefield is having the battlefield not just be randomly laid out, but have a story kind of behind it.
Yep.
Or a why this is here, why that is there. That's one thing I've always liked. There's an STL file out there that people can find of a crashed, like pieces of a crashed ship that looks
it's like a frigate.
Like a small frigate or a cutter or what have you. And I think people using that and
Dan has one.
I've got one as well.
Okay.
Using that to create a story for your actual table, I think is something that's cool.
Or like
you
the
don't have to create special rules. Just have themed objectives to go with the table, or go with the army, or what have you. All of it.
Yeah. So I have my alien invasion table, which is a lot of the 3D printed versions of the old resin. I think it was a Forge World table actually, with the big tentacles coming out of the ground and a bunch of that stuff. And then I've used, the aquarium plants and a few other things there. And then I printed out a big transport with a trailer. And the plan is to get dead humans and have it be that there was an expedition of a human settlement that went there to try and like capture aliens. And I want to put bodies laying around the trailer to where like they captured a alien and then it broke out and killed a bunch of them. And so then that's kind of the story, right? So the Marines are there investigating what happened when these humans were trying to capture some xenoforms.
So what you're saying is you made LV.
Somebody did that recently. I saw it, and it had the LEDs and everything, and it was pretty cool.
Mine's really bright colors and stuff, but I didn't go with LEDs. But I did some cool things, like I took packaging. There was just like a dome and painted like some vines on it, like roots, external roots, and then spray painted over the top of it with like metallic purple or something. And then so the outside's all glossy and then it's painted on the inside, and then poked a hole in it and put a tree sticking out of it. So that's like the base of some of the aquarium trees and stuff like that.
I dig that. And that's one thing I think that you can actually really get into is crafting your own table to make it your own game, to make it your own story. That'll just draw more attention to it and have more engagement.
Yeah, and you could find aquarium plants and a lot of that type of stuff fairly cheap, not just from aquariums, but AliExpress and Temu. God, I've seen tons of that on there.
Amazon, yeah.
I mean, go to like generic toy shops. You'll find
or
stuff
if you've
there.
got
Dollar
train
General
shows and things like that. I know I picked up a lot of low scale, really crappy buildings from people that didn't want them for their train sets anymore.
Yeah.
At train shows, like for $3 or $4. Like I bought these diner cars. Someone on one of the Necromunda groups had put a diner car in their underhive, and I was like, that is so cool. Like it's kind of the weird random crap you'd find under hive. And so I thought that was cool, and I found them for like $5.
I was putting together that board, and I couldn't find anything to use or I was trying to come up with bases to put some of the trees on, and I ended up finding some clear plastic just paint palette. So it's that funky traditional like paint palette shape like you see people holding and painting. And so I just got that and spray painted it green and purple colors to match the board, and then put all the trees on it. So it's kind of got a funky metallic look, but it's an easy way to make the bases.
No, it makes sense. Makes sense.
So,
and that's one thing I think that is kind of least another bit that we all need to remember is Heresy is kind of a niche of a niche, as we've mentioned repeatedly before. If you are playing it in your game store, you're one of the few. A lot of people are playing it in their basements or with friends or at events, and they don't get a chance to play at home all that often. So if you have the space and you have a table and you've got stuff or you don't have a table built yet, build it. Bring your friends over. Make it a community thing. Make your friends help you or have your friends help you building that table and building that terrain. Kind of make it a club or a hobby group thing doing that. And use that to expand your community.
That's one thing we've done every year here.
Yep.
Now I'm going to have to go watch Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come.
Yeah. I mean, anything to increase more people able to play Heresy, however they play it. That's all that matters to me. Anyhow, does anybody else have anything else they want to say on this topic?
Yeah, I mean, just you can let your imagination run wild, and that's the one cool thing about, as you were saying, like with Heresy though, we kind of pride ourselves in having like the top-notch tables when we go to events, compared to like the standard, I guess the new bog standard GW box set that they have for all event play for 40K now.
Yeah, we don't really shoot for bog standard. I mean, you look out there at the armies that are out there, and people put hundreds, if not thousands, of hours into the work on their army.
Yep. And there's
your terrain deserves at least a decent amount of that time as well.
I don't know if they continually sponsor us, but I know they've supported us and they support the Firex group. Like Death Ray Designs has their whole
Yep.
Not just the ZM stuff though. They have a lot of nice stuff that comes out of there. I have a set of their bunkers somewhere and a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. And speaking of Death Ray Design, we actually have a table we're still giving away. Voting is open for that. John, what was the contest we were running? How do people vote?
Yes, we've got 1 week left on our contest. If you go to the Heresy Discord and go down to
the contest channel,
you'll find a bunch of posts from people that are posting some really cool army picks, as well as some of the fluff that they've written. And what we're doing is, all you have to do is find the one you like the most, give it a nice thumbs up emoji, and whoever has the most votes at the end of this week, I believe it's going to be the 17th as we're voting, or we're closing votes. We're going to have a little time after that. We're going to get our fancy guest judge to read a couple for us. And whoever wins first is going to get a complete 6x4 table from Death Ray Designs. As Dan mentioned, they make great terrain. I'm going to paint it up and then make a kind of a live blog as we go through it.
Yep, and actually to correct that, the voting runs through May the 20th at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That way people have a little bit extra time to put a vote in if somehow they don't have time before that. But we've got a lot of entries, and one happy winner is going to come away with a really nice set of terrain. And is going to have their fluff read to us by JP of Canadian fame. Do we have anything else we want to bring up tonight, gentlemen, or are we about done for tonight?
I was just going to say a brief thing that the Bama Heresy event on June 1st, it is, I'm not going to say it is full, but it is very, very close to being full at the moment, and we're working on trying to get some more space for more players if they want to come. So I think right now we're sitting at least 20 people for the regular Heresy stuff, and then the ZM, there's still a couple spots left. So if you're interested, please get in touch with Bama Blake or Bergeron, and or go to the Facebook page for the Bama Heresy, and you can get in touch with them that way as well. And so it's June 1st, and it's up in Madison, Alabama, which is like the suburbs of Huntsville, and the store is actually a pretty cool store. It's very they have like an Airbnb built into the store that's themed for, I think, Lord of the Rings, and they have a restaurant in the store as well. So it's a pretty cool place from what Bergeron has said. It's one of his local hangouts.
Sounds good to me. And one thing we'd actually talked about before was we were going to be doing our own Heresy or Accountable Thursdays, since VW has put away the Heresy Thursdays for now. Unfortunately, we did not get a chance to take care of that this week, so we are apologizing for having missed it. We will have that done next week.
And group watch for the previews apparently. So
yes, we will do that as well. And of course, we are still doing our regular Wednesday night hobby hangout or hump day hangout or heresy hangout, whatever you want to call it.
Which has been, since we started kind of like after Adepticon, man, it's been packed every week.
Yeah, it's been packed so much that I almost thought about making a second hobby hangout room for people to splinter off, for people who want to talk about nonsense, and then the people who are wanting to talk about what they were working on hobby-wise.
Yep.
Yeah, I hopped in one night and couldn't get a word in edgewise because y'all were talking about guns, and I know nothing about guns.
No,
I mean more power to you.
This week was this week
was
Gen Alpha people not watching, having watched any movies, so they have like no reference to when we make like comments from a movie.
I think we discovered that one of the people who listen and does participate in the hangouts hasn't seen Spaceballs.
He hadn't seen Astartes. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. He hadn't seen Tombstone. I mean,
I can understand movies because I'll admit I've been catching up on movies. I hadn't seen Tombstone until about 4 years ago, but having not seen Astartes, come on.
Astartes.
Tombstone 4 years ago. What?
Yeah, that's where I'm sitting here at.
You said you wouldn't kill me. That's before
I'm
you
lying.
started decorating your bar with my friends. Is that Tombstone or is that a different one?
That, sir, is the Clint Eastwood movie
Unforgiven?
Unforgiven. No. Thank you. Yes.
Unforgiven. Yeah.
That was.
So.
Yeah.
Forget that. We should go back and do like classic war movies, like Dirty Dozen.
No, as much as I would love to, I think some of those, some people out there really wouldn't want to watch them because they're not modern enough.
Dirty Dozen's amazing.
I like a lot of old movies, but I'll admit, like, went back through and watched all the Dirty Harrys and a bunch of other stuff that I hadn't seen before, and there's a lot of establishing and things like that that's in some of those older movies that keeps the pace. Like, Good, Bad, and the Ugly was one that there's a lot of walking in that. Like, it makes Lord of the Rings seem like it's a small jog.
You're not wrong.
A lot of walking in that, and I'm like, it's good for the movie because it makes you feel like you're them. But I could see where newer people with shorter attention spans would get bored otherwise.
No, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, look at Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh yeah, I love that movie, and that's a long movie.
I mean, how much of it is just spent walking in the desert? A lot.
Yeah.
And this is obviously proof that we've gone way off topic if this is what we're talking about now. So I think at this point, guys, we'll just go ahead and call it here. Look forward to seeing people in the hobby hangout this week on Wednesday. And looking forward to see what we come up with for Accountable Thursday and for the preview shows coming up. And since Brian's not here, I'll go ahead and close this out unless there's any objections.
No, you're good.
Cool. Remember, listeners, stay accountable to yourself, stay accountable to your buddies, and stay accountable to your hobby. And as always, we will catch you the next time. Thank you for joining us tonight on episode 82 of the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast.